Hi, Juliette. This is your daddy on March 31st, 2018. I was feeling sick yesterday, and I'm feeling sick even worse today. And way back when I wrote this uh, uh, 14 months ago, I must have been sick that day too. It's to your mother, remember. These emails are written to your mother. Um, and the topic of this email is morals. This is the second installment of ideas I wanted to discuss as a result of my therapy session. Still very sick, by the way. I wanted to visit the subject, even though I may come away with nothing more than I started with. But please read, because I would like you to think about what I have said. Let me state up front that there is no confusion that I am in no way implying that you are not an immoral person or have done something immoral. My long history of knowing you would preclude me from that assertion. There is right and wrong, but I also believe there is universally wrong, though some philosophers beg to differ. So, please read this thoroughly and try not to get bored, because I will bring everything around to an interesting conclusion. I can say we all have our own set of morals, and morals differ from just doing good and bad things, because we might do something bad, but we are unlikely to do anything immoral unless we are depraved or mentally ill. Now, is there a universal morality? Is there somewhere a line in the sand is for all of us is to obey? And where does it come from? Well, let me tell you just a couple of stories about myself. One day I was at the post office, and on the back counter there were two brand new rolls of packing tape that somebody obviously left there. Now, I use this stuff all the time. I was also in need of some because I was out. No one could possibly see me, so I took both of them. I took them to the front counter and said somebody must have left these here. And I thought about that afterwards. It wasn't like I was contemplating what to do. There was just no other choice in my mind other than to do the right thing. Even though I'm poor, and whoever left them probably never would have missed the money. Why couldn't I do it? I don't know. Perhaps I learned this from my mother. I certainly didn't learn it from the Bible. In fact, if I were to base my morality on the Bible, I would probably be a very bad person. Besides, I detest doing the right thing because people there might be an eye in the sky watching me. I'm trying to punch a ticket to heaven or something. I'm somebody's slave, and I do things because I've got a big boss watching me. When I drove a cab, I always returned everything I found. I returned it personally, wallets, phones, even an umbrella. I would never accept a reward. Why again, I wondered. Because it's the right thing to do. One time I dropped off this woman on the Upper West Side and then dropped her teenage daughter and her friend at another second location. They had left a very beautiful and expensive scooter in my trunk, which I noticed at the end of my shift. All I could remember was where I dropped them off to the mother. So I left a note by the buzzer which said, "Did you leave something in the trunk of a cab?" Sure enough, the next day she called and described the scooter. This time it was a Saturday, and I told Juliette the story, and we were going what we were doing, and it was why it was the right thing to do. So I coached Juliette what to say at the right time. The mother was, as you can expect, extremely happy, and said, "Let me give you something so you and your daughter can have a nice lunch." I said, "Thank you, but that's okay." I turned to Juliette and I said, "Juliette, tell the nice lady why we bought back her scooter and why we would not accept her reward." And good old Juliette said, "Because it was the right thing to do." Now, where does this leave me in terms of threatening to kill somebody? And not just anyone, but my own daughter? What is a universal moral code? It's pretty tricky, but three things I cannot believe anyone would disagree with. The first is the golden rule. The second comes, and there's two versions, and they both involve the least amount of suffering to the most amount of people, or just unnecessarily causing another person undeserved suffering. And the third would simply be fairness. Outside of that, have we any right to say Muslim women deserve to be forced to be dressed in cloth bags, be beaten, killed for being raped? In fact, Islam subjugates women almost on every level, not being allowed to read or drive a car, and there are those out there that say this is none of our business, and this is not morally wrong. I would say this is totally bull, and there has to be a line in the sand. Now, we know I never threatened Juliette. I have a letter from someone that verifies this was a lie, but that doesn't matter because you know that. Now, you know I'm no saint. If I had beaten Juliette or touched her inappropriately, I would have to just say, Lyle, you got what you deserved. But I can't get my head around my punishment in this relationship to anything that I might have done wrong. Which was at worst calling Juliette a name? This seems to violate all three fundamental tenets of morality as I understand them. I am going to suggest that you may have had a reason for doing all of this, but by not talking with me, I'll never know. But I know that you're not a bad person, so what gives? In my next email, I will speculate what I may have done to have this happen, and perhaps why you can't go back on your lie. I have a theory that all the bad stuff was the doing of your lawyer, and you might just be what is called being just stuck between a rock and a hard place. But if we could talk, perhaps we could find a solution. Then again, who knows? And that was the email that was sent that day. At this date, I have another conclusion as to why your mother did what she did. And, but everything I said about morality, I still believe. And I don't think that I ever did anything morally wrong. So I want you to think about all the time we spent together. And, think about, did I do anything that justified me never seeing you again? There was a woman in a T.S. Eliot story. She said to her therapist, I want to have done something wrong. And he said, why do you want to have done something wrong? And she goes, because if I'm treated the way I'm treated, and I haven't, then I don't want to live in this world. No truer words were spoken or written. I love you, Juliette. Goodbye.